So Blizzard have just made one of the wildest decisions I've ever seen for their FPS game, Overwatch 2. In classic Blizzard fashion, they've decided to completely go back to the drawing board, ripping up the last 2 years of work they've done on Overwatch 2, as Blizzard have announced a potential return to 6v6 Overwatch. I know, crazy, right? I mean, this company that got memed on so hard when they announced the release of Overwatch 2, as you know, putting a 2 next to a game's title kind of implies that it's going to be a new game, not just, oh, I don't know, removing one tank from each team, so now it's 5v5 and doing some general graphic and ability updates to the heroes. Like, imagine if Blizzard released Dota 3 and all they did was just make it 4v4 now and then add a few graphic updates, some character updates, and then just call it a day, only for like 2 years later, they were like, Jake, hey guys, back to 5v5. This is basically what has happened with Overwatch. And to me, this really reveals a greater problem that Overwatch 2 as a game has been suffering from. Hello everyone, I'm Finn. Welcome back to finnfilms. Join me today as we discuss what I believe is the real problem with Overwatch 2. So right now, if you're someone who watches my videos regularly, you might be like, Finn, what the heck, man? A video about gaming and Overwatch of all games in my feed? Yes, I know this isn't usually the type of content that I usually make, and I am ashamed to admit this, but I'm a bit of an Overwatch fan. However, though, even all the way back in the beta days of Overwatch 2, this game had a very looming problem, a problem that has only gotten like 10 times worse since the full release of this game and the many subsequent patches, and that problem is how goddamn strong tanks and supports are in this game. I know, right now, tank and support players are probably absolutely fuming and are currently frantically typing out a full dissertation on how I am wrong in the comment section down below, but just hear me out here first. Overwatch 2 is a 5v5 role queue based first-person shooter. There's 3 roles in the game: 1 tank, 2 supports, and 2 DPS. On the surface, the jobs of each of these roles are, like, pretty self-explanatory. The tank tanks damage, the support heals said damage, and the DPS does said damage. Except, that's not really how it plays out at all in the actual game. You see, with the release of constant, like, balance updates as well as changes and new characters, DPS has slowly begun losing its identity as a role, DPS, in my opinion, being the weakest role in the game with the least amount of impact on said games. Tanks in Overwatch 2 are not just tanks, they are unkillable god kings that regularly pump out the most damage in the game. Okay, maybe that's a little bit dramatic, but the point still holds true. Obviously though, with just 1 tank now in Overwatch 2, Blizzard has had to make some like pretty significant changes and updates to the tank role, such as juicing up their health, improving the damage negation of armor, as well as pumping up their damage output. Again though, a lot of these changes are understandable. I mean, with just 1 tank now in the game, it means that that 1 tank is now going to potentially take twice as much damage, as they don't have an off tank to share this damage with, so they did need to make like significant balance changes in order to make this work. But in doing so, they made tank easily the most important role in the game, and it's not even close. If your tank ever dies in Overwatch 2 and you find yourself in a 5v4 fight, then that fight is basically an L, unless someone on your team makes some sort of absolutely crazy play or you blow like multiple ults to try and potentially turn that fight. Tanks have so much impact on this game, it's not even funny, from divers like Winston and Doomfist able to 2v1 your backline, to abilities like Sigma Shield and D.Va Defense Matrix, which basically render almost all of the DPS roster completely useless. Why they increased D.Va's defense matrix to 3.5 seconds, I will never know. D.Va being able to easily dive a DPS in the backline, blow all of her cooldowns behind her defense matrix, kill this DPS, and then dip out without getting punished like at all. Again, I understand that at this point in time, there's only one tank in the game now, and because of this, it makes it a bit more difficult to balance the tank role, as they need to give them enough survivability to withstand being shot at by literally everyone in the game, but also enough damage output to be able to fight the other enemy tank and to kill backliners, I guess. But to me, it really is inarguable that tank is now easily the most important role in a game of Overwatch, tanks easily being able to bully and steamroll any DPS and any support character by themselves. But you see, this video is not about tanks. While balancing tanks is indeed a problem in Overwatch 2, the real problem to me, especially as someone who enjoys playing DPS, is supports. Supports in Overwatch 2 have seen some of the biggest power creep of any of the roles, and this all seemed to start from a good place, the Blizzard balancing team wanting to give supports enough tools so they could be relatively self-deficient and being able to defend themselves from diving DPS characters. Except now those supports have gotten so good, they have so many tools that they are legit better 1v1 duelers than a good portion of the DPS roster. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Baptiste, Illari, and Kiriko. Here, let me just show you what I'm talking about. Baptiste has one of the most insane kits of any character in this game. Not only can they 2-burst like most DPS characters within 30 meters, and he is hit scan, he also has an AoE self-triage heal and a drone that literally makes him invulnerable until it's destroyed. If you're a DPS character and you find yourself in a 1v1 with the BAP within 30 meters and that BAP has every cooldown available to him, then you're losing that 1v1 9 out of 10 times. Next, we have Kiriko, one of the most brain-dead characters I've ever played. Even through all the nerfs this character has gone through, this character is still insanely good, and you can easily abuse this character up to mid-diamond ranks. They have a teleport that also self-cleanses on an 8-second cooldown, allowing them to do flank DPS plays and not get punished at all. As well, they have an invulnerability that cleanses debuffs, and a kunai with a 2.5 damage multiplier that you can fire off at 2 shots per second with no damage fall off at all, making this character objectively just better Hanzo at this point, especially after Hanzo lost his ability to one-shot most characters. Okay, yes, I hear you already typing out there in the comments, but Kiri's kunai, you see, is a projectile, so it actually does take skill to hit, and sure, that's a pretty fair counterpoint, but the fact that they buffed projectile size now so you can do stuff like this, what the f*** is this? No, God! A good Kiriko player can basically dumpster any single hit scan DPS character. I mean, she 2-shots Widowmaker, Kiri being an amazing Widow counter because the Widow has to stand still to shoot. Meanwhile, the Kiri can rappy snappy AD spam to her heart's content, and the Widow has to hit 1 shot, while if they miss, they're basically dead to the Kiri. Cassidy stands no chance against the Kiriko outside of 30 meters because of Cassidy's insane damage fall off, and the same goes for Ashe as well. Rule of thumb, if you're playing a hit scan DPS character fighting a Kiriko outside of 40 meters, you might as well just hide and wait. And then there's the newest addition to the roster, one of the biggest problems, Illari. I have no idea what they were thinking when they were designing Illari. Illari is what would happen if you let a DPS main design a support character. Yeah, give me a railgun that does 112 damage to the head and a turret, but you see the turret heals everyone, including myself, so that way I can focusing on clicking heads instead of healing my team. I don't have to decide if I want to DPS or heal. I can just let my my turret heal. Oh yeah, and as well, give me a damage ult that's better than most of the DPS roster's ults. What is this character? There's a reason why, every single top-ranked DPS player plays Illari when they have to play support or when they want to play support. There's a reason why most top 500 supports absolutely spam this character. And for all intents and purposes, this hero is a glorified DPS character. Don't get me wrong, some of the other support characters also have some problems, but to me, these 3 are by far the most problematic. I mean, Zen has the ability to one-shot any non-tank as well as a Giga Kick with a knockback, but he also has no movement escape abilities, so it is very possible to punish him. Moira is the most brain-dead character on the roster and is a menace in low elo because she's basically like an aim check. You either hit your shot or she kills you and most likely teabags you, but she can be hard punished by flying characters or if your team actually just turns around to peel the flanking Moira. Brig is a glorified mini-tank who absolutely ruined Overwatch 1. Mercy can go Ultra Instinct with her ult flying around like a Harrier jet that is almost like impossible to hit.
Yep. That's why they increased the projectile size on Mercy Pistol right there.
And Lucio in the hands of a good player is easily the most annoying character to play against as a DPS player. All things considered though, all of these heroes are much more balanced than Bap, Kiri, and Lari, and are nowhere near as much of a problem, with Lifeweaver and Ana being easily the most fair and balanced supports on the roster. So far in the very young history of Overwatch 2, there's really only been like one broken DPS character, and that was Sojourn. There was a reason why Sojourn was in almost every single game, and that was because you could actually kill things with your railgun, but then they nerfed her to the ground and now no one really plays her. Same goes for Pharah, who they recently overtuned in her mini rework and was nerfed within a few weeks. Venture as well was also overtuned on release, and then they nerfed her within a few weeks. Even when it comes to like ultimate abilities, it feels like DPS characters just have like such little impact. I mean, Bob is basically a glorified turret, Castle might be the worst ult in the game, Pharah is press Q to die, Torb spits goo and his ult is really better used as like utility, Mei is only good in combo with like CC or against characters without movement ability, and the list goes on and on and on for the DPS roster. Honestly, in my opinion, there's really only like 2 DPS characters that actually have good ults that actually can impact in the game, and that's Sombra, EMP, and Echo Duplicate. Even then, Echo Duplicate is really only good to duplicate like the tank, and they nerfed the max health that you can get, making it to where you can only get 350 HP as opposed to the full 750 HP in the case of Roadhog. So even then, it's not as good as it used to be. It really took me playing a game like Marvel Rivals to realize the extent of how little impact that DPS have on like high-level Overwatch 2 games, where as opposed to DPS in Marvel Rivals have the potential to kill everyone and actually have ults with real impact and value, and you can do stuff like this.
Who could fight the goddess of hell? Here's this life.
This lack of impact for DPS characters was only made worse by the introduction of the new passive abilities in Overwatch 2. Sure, it's nice that DPS now have passive healing over time and don't have to rely on as much on their supports to actually heal them, but you see, the problem is that every role has this passive healing now, so supports are even harder to kill than they were before. As well, the DPS reduction, heal reduction passive is not nearly good enough to really make a real difference in my opinion. To me, playing DPS a lot of the times kind of feels like a pointless role when tanks are like almost unkillable if they're being pocketed by both their supports, as well the fact that many of these support heroes can do just as much damage as the damage characters. I mean, you'd probably be better off running 4 supports in the game rather than 2 supports and 2 DPS if you could. Now, I know at this point there's probably already people who have wrote in the comments, well, that sounds like a skill diff to me, bucko. And sure, you might be right. I never claim to be like a god at this game. I'm just a mid-diamond player. There's a ton of other players who are much better at me than in this game. Though, we do need to remember that like around 82% of the player base is ranked plat or lower. So, you know, that's just food for thought when you read the comment sections. Indeed, though, it may just be a skill issue. It may just be my skill issue, my lack of skill at the end of the day. Except, though, you don't have to take my word for it that DPS are the weakest role in the game with the least impact. Why don't you listen to top 500 player Widowmaker God and former Overwatch League pro Surefour's thoughts on the state of DPS in Overwatch 2.
Very good for what it is, but there's a lot of things that make it ass for DPS players. For example, they decided to give D.Va 0.5 more seconds of Matrix.
You know why that had to happen, right?
Why?
Because there's only one tank in the game, bro.
Well, no, here's the thing. So tanks complain about taking too much damage, right? But tanks do 1,000,000 damage. For example, our Doomfist has the most damage in the lobby, and supports do 1,000,000 damage. So even if the DPS is flanking, the tank is still taking 1,000,000 damage from a tank and a support. And 6v6 won't change anything. If anything, what's going to happen when they do the 6v6 experiment is they're not going to nerf tanks at all, and then it's just going to be a Doomfist and a Junker Queen / Ball that have 5,000,000.67 health just running you down.
So here's the thing. Maybe Overwatch switching back to 6v6 will fix a lot of these problems. Maybe this game should have just always had 2 tanks, or maybe 2 tanks will just equal double the pain for anyone that's not playing tank. The only way that 6v6 will actually work is to rebalance the tank role as well as DPS, or every DPS is just going to get farmed by Devo Winston jumping the backline, or like Mauga Winston. Any combination of 2 tanks is just going to be absolutely busted for DPS players. But hey, what do I know? Now, right now, you might be asking yourself, Finn, if you have so many problems with this game, then why are you even playing it at this point? Or why don't you just go play support? Well, you see, even with all of these problems that I think that Overwatch 2 has, as someone who has the most fun playing Overwatch 2, playing the DPS role, to me, Overwatch 2 is still actually a fun game to play most of the time. At this point in time, there's not enough other FPS out there right now that is as satisfying to shoot stuff with the right level of polished as well as having a fast level of play as Overwatch 2. Counter-Strike and Valorant are fun, like, tactical shooters, but you can spend, like, most of the game, like, not even shooting at anyone, and not to mention all the downtime between the rounds. Overwatch 2, despite all of its many flaws, is still the best fast-paced FPS experience that you're gonna get. I mean, you literally spend like 90 to 95% of an Overwatch game shooting at something, and the actual aiming in the game and the gunplay is very satisfying. It's extremely satisfying when you get kills on enemies in this game, and at this moment in time, there's not another game that's actually released that has the combination of all of these things, the combination of good polish of a game with good gunplay and fast-paced DPS, FPS action. But who knows what will happen in like a year's time. Maybe things will change with the release of Marvel Rivals on the horizon, as well as whatever other DPS games that developers have cooking up. At the end of the day, this is just like my opinion from having played thousands of hours of Overwatch 2 and thousands of hours of other FPS games. There's definitely going to be people who disagree with me, and that's fine. This is just my experience from having played this game consistently since open beta, and who knows, maybe 6v6 will finally be the thing that saves Overwatch 2, but at that point, isn't it just Overwatch 1? As always, guys, if you did enjoy the video, learn something new, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as that is the easiest way to help support me, and it really does help a lot in putting these videos into the algorithm. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on the state of DPS in Overwatch 2. Just do your best to keep it civil down there, please. If you did enjoy this video, then why don't you check out some of my other videos on screen now. If you like this type of gaming type of content, then let me know in the comment section down below, and I may do other gaming type content in the future. As always, I hope to see you in the next video. Until next time, guys, stay safe out there. Peace, love, OW2.